Well, thank you. Well, it's a privilege to be here with you today via Zoom. I haven't been to Dallas in quite a few years, but it's a wonderful area out there in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I've got some family that lives in Texas. So I know everything's bigger in Texas. So it sounds like you got a wonderful program out there. And it's just an honor to be with you. And you'll excuse me today. I've got a little bit of a hoarse voice, struggling with a cold, but hopefully God can still speak through me and encourage you with what I have to say today. But I just want to open with prayer. Is that okay, Mark?
It's great.
All right, let's open with prayer. Heavenly Father, we are in awe of who you are, and we are more in love with you today than we were yesterday. God, I pray that is the case with these students, that they are seeking your heart, God, and that you are molding them and shaping them to be not only servants of you, God, but ministry leaders. And uh, we know that to be leaders, we have to be humbled, God. So I pray for a humble spirit for these students. And as they go forth in their studies and future ministry, that you would just bless them, God. I thank you that we have this opportunity to uh, just talk about worship and how it affects our students. And I pray that you would continue to raise up a new generation of students to lead our churches, God. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, just a brief little history about who I am so you kind of get a little context. I was actually born and raised in Minnesota. I don't know if any of you are from the North, but it's very different than the South. Yeah. Grew up in a very small town. My dad was a Baptist pastor, not Southern Baptist, but a Baptist pastor, and we had about 30 or 40 people in our church. So grew up in a small church context, and through the years developed a love for piano and for the church, and got an opportunity to go to a private Christian college in the Twin Cities area, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and was able to get a music degree there, a church music degree. And after college, I was looking for some opportunities to become a music minister. At the time, I didn't think I wanted to work with students. In fact, I would go as far to say I really did not like working with students. They were like last on my list. But God opened up a door down in Alabama. I had never been to Alabama. And I went completely on faith. And I was actually supposed to go to a different church. I was interviewed and was going to get a job elsewhere. And at the last minute, God opened up this door, and I thought I'd put my resume in. And to my surprise, they called me back right away and interviewed and knew this was where I was supposed to be in Huntsville. Um, and so God took me down here. I was doing a lot of accompanying and piano things, and they told me we want to develop a student music program, or really redevelop it. They had had one back in the 1980s, and it had kind of dwindled down. When I came, there were maybe 15 students that were in the program singing each week. And they told me, it's yours, have at it, do what you want with it. So that kind of started everything. I've been at the church now for 18 years this May. And a little bit about the church I'm at. It's Whitesburg Baptist Church in Huntsville, Alabama. It began in 1957, and they had a big revival take place in the 1980s, and the church really grew. We had the same senior pastor from 1978 all the way to 2018. So quick math, he was there 40 years. So it was a very traditional old Southern Baptist church. And after I came, we saw kind of the attendance dwindle down. We were really aging as a church, and we had the opportunity to have a new pastor come in 2018 that has really turned around especially our younger families, attracting younger people. And throughout this time, though, we were building up the student choir, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But let me just talk about a few other roles that I've got at the church. I don't know how many of you are um, going to be working in a church setting, Mark. I don't know if you can answer that, but are most of these students going into some sort of ministry with music, or is it just across the gamut of music.
I think just about everybody here would say that they are in and are planning for, as much as they can tell, a lifetime of Christian service in worship and in music. We've got a mixture here of some undergrads. Most of the students are going to be master's level, and then there's some doctoral level as well. I see Mr. James, Professor Cheeseman there on Zoom with us. Usually we've got a handful of other doctoral students that are popping in here and there, but everyone here is enrolled in some sort of worship degree. I don't think we have any performance majors here. We might have a couple, but everyone here should be pretty much on the same boat.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let me tell you, ministry is the most rewarding and most challenging thing you can do, I think, in this life. But my role here at the church, first and foremost, is as a pastor. I'm on the pastoral team, caring for the congregation through pastoral duties. I visit those that are sick in the hospital. I do a lot of meeting with the congregants and talk with them about spiritual things and emotional things. And of course, second to that is my role on the worship staff. We currently have a senior worship pastor, and we've got two services on Sunday mornings, and he leads our 9:30 blended service along with our adult choir. And I actually help with that service. I play piano, I help lead often. And then we've got another associate worship pastor who leads our orchestra, and he helps direct our 11 o'clock service, which is more band driven. But my worship role primarily with the student choir or the student music program. And so sometimes I'll do other things. Actually, I think I've done just about everything you can at church over the last 18 years. I've led worship. I've led and played at funerals and weddings and Bible studies, and directed the orchestra, and was actually the interim worship leader for a couple of years when we didn't have a senior pastor, music pastor. And we've got a Christian school here at our church, and I've led those choirs as well over the years. So just about everything you can imagine. But like I said, when I came in 2005, the student choir was about 15 students, 6th to 12th grade. And over the years, it's blossomed. We actually, this year, we've had about 175 students in choir each week, which is just very rare that you would find that number of kids that want to sing even in a public setting like a school. But it's really our core program is the choir. And from that, we've got a lot of other smaller groups that come out from that. But before I get into that, I just wanted to share kind of what our purpose is for the student choir. We go along with our church motto is to connect, grow, and serve. So based on those principles, I'm just going to read you kind of what our purpose is. We desire to connect with one another and God. We believe each singer has special gifts for the ministry of music, and we acknowledge that these gifts and the joy of music come from God. And then secondly, we desire to grow musically and spiritually, and we foster growth both musically and spiritually by embracing the challenge and reward of singing diverse musical styles. And the choir is dedicated to high musical standards and consistent musical leadership, which requires a high level of commitment from all members. And I think that's one of the keys to the success of any program is just challenging the students, because I think oftentimes people don't think students can do very much. And I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. And thirdly, we desire to serve our church, our community, and the world through music missions. We serve one another for the mutual support of fulfillment of our members. As recipients of God's grace, we serve with a sense of gratitude for what God has given us. And we serve knowing our primary purpose is worship leadership, which we fulfill by singing excellent music based on God's word. I know that was a lot to kind of take in, but that's our core principles and why we do what we do, why we have a program. Because honestly, if you're going to have something like this in your church, you need to first figure out, why do we need this? Do we need this? And I know that Mark remembers writing those final theses. They were challenging. I actually wrote mine based on worship leadership through students in the church, and that's something I'm very passionate about. And you'll see that as I talk here. But our student music program, we've got several groups. Like I said, our core group is the student choir, and it's open to anybody in grades 6 to 12. There's no audition. We've got every kind of a singer you can imagine. Those that are very off key, and that is okay, and those that have been training vocally for years. Um, and then our choir meets on Sundays in the late afternoon, evening from 5:15 to 6:45, so about an hour and a half. And in the spring semester, we've got 2 semesters. In the spring semester, we split up our choir into middle school and high school. I don't know if you guys remember what it's like being a sixth grader, but sixth grade and 12th grade are like opposite ends of the planet. So we have them together so that they can our older ones can kind of model and teach our younger ones in the fall, and then we'll split up and be able to kind of work on music that is a little more appropriate for those grade levels. Um, and so we've got 2 major highlights of our year that we do outside of leading worship several times in each semester. We've got what's called our Hanging of the Green service, which is led entirely by our student choir, and is held the first Sunday of December. And we've got a 50-piece orchestra that accompanies the choir, and they do just a variety of Christmas music. There's little vignettes and drama things that happen with it, but it's really focused on the music aspect of it. We don't try to do a big, complex Christmas production with sets and costumes. I've done it in the past and found that it kind of takes away from the worship aspect of the program and kind of makes it all about the program. So we want it to be about Jesus and pointing people to him, and getting people to sing along and be involved. And then in the spring, we do a mission trip, a choir mission trip for each of the choirs, the middle school and the high school. And our high school will go somewhere in the US. We've been a lot of places from the north, Minneapolis, Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C., all the way to the south, St. Louis, Louisville, Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, I think every city possible in Florida. And so we've been all over the U.S. With our music, doing mission work and the choir. And then our middle school will go somewhere regionally within a short day's drive of our home base here. So I'm sorry if I'm a little scattered today, Mark. I apologize. But
he just got back from their high school students just got back from their week-long, like their spring break too. So their spring break was, not just 2 days. It was like the whole week to Houston. So he's a little sleep deprived, I think.
Definitely a little sleep deprived. I run the kids hard on these mission trips, and so, but let me talk just a little bit about some of the groups and stuff that we've got from the choir. The other groups are all auditioned, and they're auditioned throughout the year. But we've got a rhythm band, guitars, keyboards, drums that'll accompany the choir. We try to get students for that. Then we've got a stomp group, which they do rhythm on trash cans mainly, but they'll even do other things with rhythms, and it's particularly effective on the mission trips. People love to hear the stomp group. It's kind of like Blue Man Group, just without the paint. And then we've got an a cappella group, a smaller ensemble of about 20 high school students, and they do all a cappella music, just a wide variety from high church all the way to your pop music. And then we've also got drama auditions or drama opportunities and solo opportunities with some of the music as well. So lots of ways for people to plug in, but everybody has to be a part of the choir to do those other aspects. Um, and so that kind of keeps everyone involved in together. So there's not any, oh, I just do the ensemble, those kind of things. But central to what I do is choosing music. I think that's so vital. And I know you've been taught this in your classes, but the music's got to be theologically sound above all. And then I look for things that are melodically interesting, and of course, spiritually dynamic. I want them to just be very well crafted and thought out songs. And I'm usually looking for a song that's clearly it's been anointed. It's, God uses it to touch people, and you can tell. One of the wonderful things about working with students is their willingness to challenge themselves musically. So I don't shy away from the 4-part harmony. When I first came, they were doing unison or 2-part, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I like to give them a challenge. So we do a lot of 4-part music, and our ensemble often does 8-part music. And so we try to challenge people and take them to another level musically. But ultimately, what I do is about people. And you guys are all studying ministry. I've heard it once said, ministry would be great without the people, but it's about the people. So, relationships between students, between the students and me and the adults, and just trust, trusting one another. That is so vital to what we do. Um, and so let me just talk just a brief second about choir rehearsals. I'm sure all of you are in rehearsals of some sort for music. We try to keep our rehearsals fast paced and very energetic. Um, so we start usually with about 10 to 12 minutes of warm ups, or even more sometimes. We spend a good chunk of time on warm ups because it's really kind of the teaching time vocally, just working on vowel sounds, working on diction, working on rhythms. And I've got a lot of fun books. If you're interested, I can share those with you. But we typically follow that up with some choir announcements. And I try to be very, uh, I don't know what the word is. I send announcements out multiple ways because, as you know, people don't look at things very often these days. So we do a weekly message on email. We do it through social media. I'll even do videos, and I try to get it across every way I can. And then we'll do a short devotion or word of testimony from a student, an adult. We'll have special guests come in and speak to the students. And then oftentimes we'll have choir sectionals. I know you guys have done those. They're so much fun. We try to make them fun. I've got different leaders that will lead each sectional, and I'll have it all spelled out exactly which measures and what to work on in those measures, and that really kind of takes us and moves us forward quickly because unlike a college choir, we only meet once a week, and during the year, sometimes there's Sundays we have to take off. So, like preparing for the music that we just did, I think we had 8 rehearsals on Sundays to put together an hour program. So, we really got to use that time wisely and really work hard in the sectionals. And then we've also got, I'm sure you're all familiar with Planning Center. We use Planning Center for everything. And all the kids have accounts. They all get on there and they can listen to their music, to their parts being sung out on Planning Center. And that is a really valuable tool for us. And so we'll finish the rehearsals usually all together, singing together. And again, I try to incorporate some serious, thoughtful reflection, as well as a lot of humor. You got to keep it light and fun as well. But just keeping them engaged throughout the rehearsal. I'm always talking about, okay, are you sitting up straight? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? And thinking about the words they're singing. I typically don't have, if I'm working with the whole choir, one section just sitting there not doing anything. They're always either oohing their part underneath or tapping out the rhythms while I work with the other sections, but it's always engaging, always engaging. Um, One of the things, I don't know, Mark, if you knew this, but we went to iPads for our music back the beginning of COVID. And so we've actually got about 200 iPads that the church bought. And everybody uses Music Stand. And so we don't have to worry about copying music or, I don't have this page or whatever.
Well, that's yeah. I'm about to say I know a lot of people use iPads, but I don't. Yours is the first church, and certainly our school doesn't buy everybody iPads. Um, yeah, it's that I think that it's that probably how many of you like all of your music you deal with on a weekly basis is on an iPad? So still a minority. So like over half of you are still using paper, right? And if someone were to give you an iPad, then you choose it. Okay, all right. Great, go ahead.
Yeah,
What?
so we use I actually do use an iPad for everything. I've got my big iPad Pro, and I've got an air turn, so I actually conduct, and I'll use this while I'm conducting on the floor, so I can turn my pages back and forward with my foot.
Not
And
just for guitar players.
yeah, not just for I use it for piano, but all my music, my piano music, everything's on there. So um, haven't had any problems yet. Lord willing, won't. But it saved us a lot of money, honestly, over the years here with copying music. 'Cause we had to copy so much music. Um, but when working with students, I think one of the other keys is organization, especially because ultimately you're working with their parents. And so the parents want to know all the details. So I send out every detail. I've got a big handbook that goes out digitally at the beginning of every year that's got everything they want to know, from how we do rehearsals to what to wear to all the different groups that they can audition for and what their rehearsal schedules are. Um, so I've got about 30 adults each week that help me. Of course, it's grown over the years, that help with everything from checking people in, attendance, to sitting up with the students and helping them learn their parts, singing out the parts. I've got people that help put together all of the logistics for the trips. Um, and so those adults are all interviewed and background checked. They go through what's called ministry safe training. Um,
We have that here at seminary. Everybody does that at seminary too.
yeah, that's so vital these days. I've really, over the last 18 years, seen ministry change from, my first few trips, all the adults just stayed in the same room at night with the students. Now we can't do that anymore. There's just a lot of different things. And with the trips I do, we used to do a lot of churches. We'd sing at churches. Now there's very few churches we sing at. We actually sing mostly at rescue missions. We do a lot of public concerts, but very few churches. So that's been kind of a change over the years. But just talking about the trip aspect, I know you guys probably do trips there as well. Um, I like to expose students to kind of a variety of ministry opportunities on these trips, not just one kind of ministry. And so, for instance, this last week, we worked with Salvation Army, we worked with an adult rehabilitation center. We did concerts in public parks and outside a public arena. Um, we work with food banks, just all kinds of ministry. So what we'll typically do is about a third of the day will be service work on the tour, and then the other two-thirds will be concerts. We'll do about a dozen concerts on the trip, and just really exposing kids to kind of just missions, because a lot of them haven't gone on a mission trip. So um, and of course we have fun too. We do some fun things. We went to the rodeo this past week in Houston. And that was an amazing experience if you've never been there. It's really cool. So
we have the real rodeo in Fort Worth. Oh, so
I
yeah.
have heard that. Yeah, the stockyards there in Fort Worth. I think I visited there once. So but I would love to well, actually, you know what? Let me just take a moment because I know you guys are all adults. I just want to go through this is kind of some of the things that my adult leaders that I look for. Um, and it's of course to love teenagers. If you don't have a heart for teenagers, then you don't want to work with teenagers in choir. Taking an interest in their lives and getting to know them, being available to listen or talk with them. That relationship is just so important. Energy, having energy and stamina because teenagers are very energetic. Consistency, that's something that teens look for is are these people consistent not only in coming each week and being there to support what we're doing, but are they consistent in their walk with Christ? Um, Flexibility. I cannot tell you a time when things have gone perfectly to plan. We always have to be flexible in what we do. Dependable. Um, of course, our beliefs have to be biblical and just a role model in the way we act and the words we speak, and of course, overall, just loving the students unconditionally. And those are just some things that I look for. It's honestly, it's gotten pretty competitive to be an adult leader in our group. Everybody wants to do it, so but we look for people that are really passionate about teenagers and just want to serve them. And um, it's been a crazy ride. I'll be honest with you. When I came to the church, I thought I'd be there a couple of years, and God has just opened up so many doors of opportunity with our choir, different opportunities to record with artists from Nashville, opportunities we've even sung at the White House years ago. Just some cool ways where the kids have made an influence and a difference in the world that normally they wouldn't get an opportunity to do in a normal church setting. But it's been a blessing. I truly think that God kind of prepared me for this as a life of ministry. I know most of my friends have gone on to be senior worship leaders, and sometimes I've thought, well, maybe that's what I need to do, but God just always tells me, you got more work to do here. And over the years we've had now into the thousands of kids that have come through the choir, and some of them are missionaries, some of them are pastors now, worship leaders. A lot of them just are serving on a worship team in their local church, and so it's definitely been a humbling experience and just one that I definitely wouldn't trade for anything. So, um, but I've been talking a lot. Mark, are there any questions or things you want to hear from me?
I'm about to say I've got a couple, but I think there's some other ones here too. Nellie,
yes.
Tell you first.
Hi. So it's really wonderful to hear the heart that you have for teenagers, and I think yours is like a model for us. Now, how do you start that? How do you start something from scratch? And maybe you can share some of your beginnings.
Sure. Well, like I said, there are definitely some growing pains. I had to go through a lot of the I thought I knew how to do it, and I really didn't. And people had to kind of put me back in my place. So, a humble spirit and being willing to listen to other, especially when you're new in a church, you need to really listen to the church members, even if you think, well, they're doing it wrong. Just have just a humble spirit. You got to have a few core students that you really kind of mentor and bring along that will be kind of your cheerleaders in a sense, where you can get them, because really it's all about word of mouth with this. Really how we grew was people bringing their friends. Like, man, this is really cool. You got to come be a part of this. It wasn't so much I went out there and got these students to be a part. It was they went out and brought their friends to it. And so, having a few core people that will really be your cheerleaders for that, I think is key. And you start small. And I'll tell you, some of those things early on that helped were we did a trip after I was here for a year. I planned a trip, and that trip really was the thing that set everything into motion. People had a wonderful time. They didn't realize they would love singing together so much, and going on a trip and doing that together and having those experiences really gelled them together and kind of created this I don't know, just this place in the church where people could come and belong and be a part of something bigger than themselves. I think that's one of the cool things about choir is these kids, apart from themselves, a lot of them, they don't sound that great when they sing by themselves, but you put them all together and they sound great, and just affirming that to them. And, man, you guys listen to how you sound. That is awesome. And it just builds up their confidence. And,
Matthew, you raised one little point that I would love for you to clarify. You've got 100 and how many students went on this trip to Houston?
So we had about 97 go this year.
Right, and then your total number with the middle schoolers is about 100 and what?
175.
So out of 175 students, how many of those students are coming with a friend and they belong to your program, but they do not belong to your church?
We definitely have some of them. I would say maybe 30 or 40 of them are just coming along. In fact, we've had a lot over the years that maybe they weren't really going to church anywhere. They came to the choir, they started coming to church, they brought their parents, and now they're members at our church. So
cool, great. Al?
Yeah, my question kind of follows up from Dr. Brown. I'm curious, what is your current church attendance numbers?
Sure.
You mentioned that they had kind of dropped. I'm also wondering if that drop affected your choir attendance, and if now, as things are building, your attendance is building.
So honestly, that didn't affect our attendance. We've kind of gone up every year that I've been here. So we average around 16 to 1700 on a Sunday. But our youth group, to be honest with you, almost the entire youth group is in the choir. We have about 175 to 200 kids in the youth group here, and it's almost become, if you're not in the choir, what's wrong with you? You need to be in the choir. So it's a unique situation.
That brings up a whole lot of questions in my mind, but and we'll probably get to that. Questions, other people? Okay, they're like, okay, what's Dr. Brown going to ask? All right, so tell me about the student ministry's regular, if you meet your rehearsals on Sunday evenings. So does your student ministry have a regular, like a Wednesday midweek meeting?
Yes.
And does the worship band or combination of players and singers that lead worship at that weekly meeting, are they your kids, or are they led or whatever by someone else?
No, those are all kids that are in the choir and in the band, and they all come on the trips.
What are you floating around? Okay.
I see there's a question on the chat. Do you want me to go ahead and answer that?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, it says, do the teenage choirs participate along with the adults in the choir intergenerationally in some capacity? Yes, we actually do. Several times a year, we come together with the adult choir, and we'll lead worship. In the past, we've done things together with the adult, with like Reggie Stone, or the Gettys have come here and we've done things together, so they get that experience. And does the youth choir sing in the Sunday morning service? No, they do sing in the Sunday morning service. And actually, they're going to be singing in just a couple weeks. And they'll just lead with the orchestra like a normal choir would, up in the loft. So, and they'll sing on the praise team and come alongside of them. So. Great question, though.
Other questions?
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Do you have an elementary program that feeds into this, or is sixth grade the first time they get choir?
So we do have a children's choir. It's kind of floundering a little bit right now. We need some revitalization there, but we do have that, and I notice a huge difference between the children that have gone through that, just musically, they're much more prepared. And the students that are in the choir that haven't gone through that, I would say, bouncing off that, maybe 20% of the choir actually reads music. A lot of them don't read music. So we rely heavily on the getting on planning center and listening to their parts. I really push that overall.
Caleb.
All right. So with having a huge student choir ministry like that, I know a lot of that may need some support from your student ministry team, particularly the student pastor and the senior pastor. So
Yep.
what advice would you give with building a student choir ministry? Would you give how to work with a student pastor and a student ministry team like that?
Yeah, I mean, that is vital. You've got to be connected with the student pastor, and be on the same page. You don't want to be trying to do a program where it's conflicting times or dates or ideologies or anything. And so that is super critical. And of course, your senior pastor needs to see it as a valuable part of the church. And really, when you talk about, these students are the next generation of worshipers in the church, and you talk on those levels, get away from the this is a performance choir. That usually doesn't jive with pastors these days, but if you show them that it's more of a worship choir, it's a time to teach students about worship, which is what we do. They're much more inclined to support it, and we've got tremendous support from our leadership here, and financially, they've seen the value of it. Those early years were tough. I didn't get as much support, especially financially. We had a lot of people that would just step up and donate to help support it, which is not what I would, want to see in a church. You don't really want to have separate programs like that being financed, but the early years, that's what we kind of had to do to get on our feet. So, I see another question here. Do you have old people's choir? Well, yes, our adult choir is actually quite elderly, but they're kind of the old people's choir. And so we do have an adult choir, and they sing about 80 to 90 in the adult choir. Another question: what is or was your 5-year plan for the music ministry of your church? That's a great question. We are actually going through a time of strategic planning at our church right now, and we're going to be looking at some of those things. But really, I would love for our students to have the opportunity to take some of this music overseas in an overseas mission. We've never gotten to do that, and doing more with our music locally. We were able to do that more the last couple of years with COVID, to take our choir out to a public area around our city, or partner even. We've partnered with some other smaller churches and come and done like a choir block party and try to revitalize their ministry a little bit. So just coming alongside of other ministries and helping them, and just encouraging them. There's a lot of small churches that are struggling and just need a little bit of encouragement. That's one of the things we did on our tour, was to go to a church plant and just really pump up the church in the neighborhood, go out and kind of canvas and invite people to come and hear the choir and get to know more about the church. That's one of the things we do. So,
Jonathan?
Yeah, my question was, what's the situation and maybe your relationship with music educators in the schools around you? And does that affect what you do, and how so?
Sure. And lots of ministers do things on the side. I am no different. I do private voice and piano lessons. I have about 18 students a week. And then I also play, accompany a lot of choirs in schools around the area, about 3 or 4 public schools, and then a Christian school here. And so I've got a great relationship with the educators. I actually know most of the music educators in our county. I do their county honor choirs. I've conducted there. And then I'm also involved in the community. We've got a community chorus, and I play for their children's choirs. So getting to know those people in those arenas has also helped. I've actually found and students and become friends with students in those settings and invited them to the choir here, and grown the choir that way. So I think that's very valuable to be a part of the community outside of the church and don't get stuck in a little bubble there, but reach out and get to know other people. It's also a witnessing opportunity, honestly, because most of the music educators here are very liberal, and if they serve in a church, it's only as a side gig, to get paid. So it's been kind of a good witnessing opportunity along the years as well. So
Thank you.
Yep, Dave.
I don't know how to develop this question, but how do you deal with the fact that you're in a small church and you have well, probably I already know the answer, but I want to hear your answer. You're in a small church, you can't separate your services, but how do you deal with the fact that all people wanted to sing hymns, but a lot of youth, they want to sing things like filled with hymns, stuff like that, but you have only one service and you need to I don't know if this is going to sound bad, but satisfy the congregation,
sure.
And I know that we don't gather around music, we gather around Jesus, but yeah, so how would you deal with that?
Well, that is a great question. We've got 2 different styles of services here. I can't honestly say I love that. I wish we could be just one service. I think it's one, you've got to educate your congregation on what worship is, and that style is way down on the list. That's a preference, but really teaching people why we worship and how we worship, and the style thing is secondary. But beyond that, we look for music that is a little bit more, can uh, cross the generations. So we'll do some Getty hymns and kind of pump them up musically to where, hey, we're singing a hymn, but it's kind of a newer hymn. We'll take a lot of times we'll do hymns in a new way, and I know that's been done, but we'll do it with a little bit more rhythm, and we'll just look for ways to instead of saying, well, this is for you guys, this is for you guys. How can we find music that kind of comes together and bridges that? And it's a tough thing. I'm not going to lie. I think the main thing is to try to change the heart of your congregation into, why are we singing this music? This may not be the style you like, but listen to the words. Look at what the lyrics are saying. So I don't know if that helped, but
he's doing the same thing that we're trying to do. Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yep, Claire.
We've discussed music in your services, but I'm curious, what's the repertoire like for the youth choir? What is there a variety of different styles? Are you doing mostly just worship, or are there any kind of more art songs?
Sure. Yeah, we actually, that's one of the cool things is our choir kids love, over the years, they've learned to love every style of music. We will do everything from high church music, and Eric Whitaker pieces. I mean, we'll do the high church stuff. Oh yeah, all the way down to the latest thing from Hillsong or whatever. And honestly, I approach it especially we'll do language pieces. We've sung in Russian, we've sung in French. And I try to show them the value of that, and how, you know, this song speaks to this part of our congregation, and look at the theology that's in this song. I never compromise theology just to do a style, but yeah, I like to expose kids to everything. It may not be their favorite, but you know, I was worried this year we did a lot of music that was more country, because I knew we were going to Texas, and the kids loved it. They embraced it. They bought cowboy hats, and they just thought it was a blast. And so country music, we did some pop stuff. We did an a cappella hymn. We did My Jesus, I Love Thee a cappella, and the choir loved it. We do a lot of gospel, and yeah, we've done things from ancient hymnody, just all the way up. So